Hi, my name's Tony Ridley and welcome to another Crisis Leadership and Management education tutorial. In this segment we're speaking about communications, push, pull, distribution, open source intelligence, and this subset we're speaking about and discussing analysis. Analysis of information. We've spoken about the collection of open source intelligence, content, online searches, verifiable data, press releases, videos, images and so on. It's important when you accumulate all of this information, not only do you have comprehensive and accurate and accessible database management systems, but also analysis of the key criteria, and the analysis will drive the collection requirements in the sense that if you are seeking to publish information, you're seeking to counteract information, or you're simply looking to position the information in amongst an ongoing conversation thread, it's important to identify what those topics of conversations are, what the requirements for verification are, the size, distribution and geography of those particular audiences. So again, it also provides accuracy and verification of specific facts, the origin of information, or where a particular point of fact may have been manipulated or diverged from the original content. It's important to make sure that all of this information and the systems and mechanisms, again, are documented and prepared and trained in advance. This is not something spontaneous that should simply, it's a prey or assimilate in real time. It should be something that should be rehearsed, particularly in advance. I spoke about the source in particular, where these originate from, a reference. If it's, for example, a Facebook page with 1 million friends and likes and fans, that is obviously a different qualified threat or concern than, or a hazard than, potentially a fresh fan page that has 2 friends and only has 3 publications. So again, qualifying the source is very helpful. Cross-referencing and checking again to see if this has been repositioned, republished. In particular, when information is positioned, you can reverse engineer the content of a particularly well-structured argument or blog or article, and identify where all of the originating content and articles were harvested that created the final draft. So for example, someone may have referenced 13 or 14 or 20 different websites for a 500 or 600 word article. Most of that can be traced through copyright and reverse engineering, and again, this helps identify collaborators, stakeholders, influential and certainly capabilities if that is the type of crisis in which one is faced with. The collection of information is no good unless it's prioritized, unless it has some directive outcome, unless it has some speculative forecast advising of certain trends. Again, preference and priority should be given to evidentiary components, statistics, data, verifiable facts, rather than any divine forecasting. And again, this is where it becomes an art and a process, and for anyone in the intelligence space, and certainly the marketing and analytical, will testify to that whilst there is a degree of artistic, non-scientific element, it should be qualified in advance or divulged as being the basis of a particular assessment for individuals handing over the assessment for crisis management teams and or crisis teams who are making speculatory assessments based on unverified content. And also, it's with the analysis, it's important to ensure that the content that's being distributed or published, that the outgoing information and content has been approved and analysed and qualified before it is actually released, not only for factual component but for legal, but also in terms of sources, credibility, data, and the medium in which it's going to be released. It's important for everybody, marketing or non-marketing, to look and view this particular scenario and problem with communications more akin to advertising and marketing, irrespective of the fact that it may be a catastrophic, it may be an emotional content, it may be something extremely negative to the organisation, it still has basic marketing fundamentals and principles in terms of identifying who the target audience is, the message, the medium, placement, frequency, time of publication. All of those things need to be considered. Certainly with the dissemination, prioritisation of what piece of information, which channels are going to be used, and how broad spectrum or how narrow the coverage is going to be. In particular, connecting to the specific audience, as well as connecting to certain modern technologies. Remembering all of these plans need to have default non-technical options. If the power goes out, the internet's down, all those sorts of things are functional, practical challenges. They should also be considered, and things like lingering latency, end user capacity, all of these sorts of things need to be considered. There's no point providing an overly technical piece of content to a spokesperson who has no technical background or reference, and who is in turn going to communicate to a layman group. That's the dissemination. You've missed your audience. You've misunderstood. It may be factually correct, but it's the wrong placement and the wrong content. Particularly when it comes to external distributions, prioritization of which specific elements you're going to use is extremely important to ensure and maintain and preserve consistency in the message. Firstly, before any communication is crafted, is to identify the audience. So understand the message that is to be communicated, the tone, and as I said earlier, it may need to be varied in terms of the segmented groups in which one will communicate with. And there may be overlap, or there may be reutilization, remarketing opportunity if there is common elements. So perhaps 3/4 of a press release may be relevant to an internal stakeholder group, or the first few paragraphs of a technical briefing may be broad enough and content specific enough for utilization in public release and domain if it's provided it's been sanitized. So once again, understanding what is available and then using subsets. So for example, if communicating with family groups, you may want to segment your message that speaks more specifically to wives or husbands or particular genders, demographics, ethnicities, languages, and so on. You may still be able to compartmentalize the audience in terms of who it is that you want to communicate with, irrespective of what may appear to be a broad standardized audience. So once again, it's important to analyze and understand the information available, identify the audience, and then release and publish a coordinated and targeted message, both internal and external, depending on the construct of the crisis or priority events. So that concludes this section on analysis and dissemination. For further information on crisis leadership and management, please go to the website at www.crisismanagement.tony-ridley.com. And that's all for this segment here. Thank you. Goodbye.